Hi there, and welcome. Now it's time for America's favorite podcast, Leave Your Mark, with your host, Vince Cortese.
If it's fly, loose fitted, it's Cortese. If freeze and chub is in it, it's Cortese.
Leave Your Mark is about inspiring the world, one guest at a time.
Pass the word from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, from urban to suburb, it's Cortese, you heard?
And here is our host, Vince Cortese.
This is Leave Your Mark. I am Vince Cortese, and today's guest is Margaret Lang. She had an idyllic lifestyle growing up in Rockford, Illinois. Her mother and father, Theodore and Mildred, are a radiologist and a nurse. She's one of 4 children. She has a sister, Mary, a sister, Martha, and Marcella. She is a graduate of Bishop Muldoon Catholic School, an all-girls school. She was the class president with a GPA of 4.0, a natural-born leader. She is since graduated from Loyola University with an English master's degree, and she has had a full career as a school teacher, a real estate agent, and now an author. She has recently survived cancer, and she's here to share her story with us today. Margaret, thanks for coming by today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored. I appreciate it.
Well, you've had quite a full life under your belt before you'd come across what would happen there. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go through your childhood there. You're one of 4 siblings. You had a mother and father that were very strong role models in your life. And you are a graduate of your high school at 4.0. So you're a bit of an overachiever already, right at a young age. So share with me kind of moving forward there when you went to Loyola University, and run me through what's happening in life at this point.
Well, the pressure on me that I self-imposed to be perfect, to have, always setting the bar higher, to please my parents, to please myself. It was just, I always just expected excellence from myself. So there was a lot of pressure. So actually at 16, before I entered my first year of at Loyola, I met a dashing young prince, and we were in love, and we decided to get married after I finished that 1 year of college. So after we were married, I just kept going to school and taking courses. But interestingly enough, I never took any of my major courses, which were English, because I thought someday I would be a teacher. At that time of people, women stayed at home, even though they didn't have children, and their aspirations, their highest at that time in history, were nurse or a teacher. It's very interesting how times have changed. Anyway, that was a great aspiration for me because I did love my teaching career. But anyway, we got married and I was 18 years old, and there it was, 10 years, and we adopted 2 children. And do you want me to keep going?
No, that actually is rather interesting. So you adopted 2 children. They're grown adults now, aren't they?
They are, yes.
And did they have any career endeavors that are similar to yours, or any influence you had on them?
Actually, no. My oldest daughter is a paralegal, and she works for a law firm. And my other daughter, we were in a terrible automobile accident, and she didn't finish high school, so she got her GED, but she's made a very successful life for herself with her daughter and her husband, and she's now working at a library, as far as I know. And that's another story.
You have a full career in teaching. You go 30 years in teaching, and then you have a real estate career. And it sounds like you're pretty good at that too, because it was quite busy. Now, at what point do you find out that you have cancer, and what kind of cancer is it?
It was in 2018, but 2 years prior to that, I was at my daughter's house in Indiana visiting, and I had an experience that was startling to me, and I didn't tell anybody about it. I had an enormous amount of blood I found in the toilet. And I don't know why I didn't say anything. I guess I just didn't want any more problems or anything around that relationship. So I had my physical that year, and I just mentioned to the doctor that probably it was polyps. She didn't seem to pay much attention. And it was 2 years later. And this is one of my strongest messages. Don't ever, ever ignore any kind of symptom, no matter how small, right? And I know that you can probably relate to that too. So then 2 years later, I was diagnosed with rectal cancer. And I always felt, not immediately, But I felt and I feel that that is very symbolic, that it was rectal cancer, because I wanted to get to the bottom of something that was nagging at me for years. I didn't exactly couldn't, because I really accomplished a lot in my life that I wanted to, and I felt satisfied about that. But there was something really not settled in me, and I know now that it was the guilt for the divorce, especially having adopted 2 children, because I felt that I wanted to offer them everything, and the relationships that occurred with my children. I wanted to get to the
That's
bottom
quite a
of it.
bit of stress right there. You just, that was a large amount of emotional transfer. So how long ago or how far apart was your divorce to the diagnosis of the cancer?
Oh, years,
Okay,
because
so now it's one of those situations where cancer doesn't show up until it's the worst time for you to know about it. So just kind of touch on for me, you were having frustration in your life prior to the cancer, and then now you find out you have the cancer, and you're still uneasy about some of these emotions at that time still. And then
yes.
how does your diagnosis then? I think everybody's moment of when they're first told, did you believe when they told you you had cancer, like that was
Oh,
like, I get it, like
absolutely.
the missing piece has been made known?
It was kind of interesting because I have this really good friend, and she's done a lot of research. We taught together, we worked together, we wrote books together. She had done a lot of study on brain research, the right and left brain, whole brain in the 80s. And so I knew that whatever was producing in my body was symptomatic of the way my belief system, because I'm very, very much committed to how we believe, what's this biblical, how you think is how you are. So anyway, and I was mentioning before, it was symbolism. So I had rectal cancer. That is at the bottom. That's your bottom. So I finally got to the bottom of my ennui, my boredom, my discomfort, my guilt, and realized how I had been thinking, and I had thought I'd forgiven myself for all of that, but I hadn't really faced the pain of the divorce, the sense of failure in my life. As successful as I had been, I had this sense of failure. And so that's what I felt the cancer was all about. How it happened was that revelation. God is so marvelous sometimes with his revelation, that so Pam, being a researcher, she brought over some Tony Robbins exercises. And one of them was to write down all of the problems that I had experienced, in this case with my daughter, and then read them really quickly to circus music. And when that happened, I started laughing. I go, this is it. This is what's been bothering me. I can forgive myself. I can get through this. This is what my body is reacting to. It's a sign to get me well. Does that make sense?
Yes. How interesting. I mean, I follow Tony Robbins, and what a tremendous exercise in order to help you find your emotion or the block. Like,
Yes.
that was very clear for you then.
Yes.
I agree with you. My own personal experiences is the level of pressure that we put ourselves mentally does far greater damage to our health than we know. And then we usually wind up in a situation like yourself.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. Be our friend on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
Whether jumping out the MP or jumping on the air.
You are listening to Vince Cortese. We just want you to leave your mark.
Because I'm always curious, because that was the biggest moment for me. So you're told you have cancer. What was your initial thought?
Well, I have to tell you that at that time, I was suffering from acute pain in my L4, my L5. This has been going on for months. And so I was mostly on the floor in pain. And I even had a mobile chair in my house to get from my bed to the back door to let the dog out. I couldn't walk. So that had been going on, right? And then I found out I had cancer. So the doctor's office, the oncologist's office, on the first visit, he told me, well, first of all, the gastrointestinal doctor told me I would not need surgery. I would have to have 5 weeks of chemo and radiation. So then when I saw my oncologist, he was just very clear that this is the program that I had to do. And I just said, I can't do it. I'm in too much pain. I was lying down on his table in the office. And so I said, I just can't do this. And so fine, he said, fine. And I was very sassy at the time. I don't think I'd surrendered yet to the idea that this is happening. I'm going to deal with it. It's not going to be easy, but I'm going to be agreeable to their, because I'm very independent. So I said, so he just took it and he slammed it together and he said, fine, go get your back fixed and then we'll deal with cancer. And my friend Pam was there. She goes, oh, no, we're going to deal with cancer. So while I was getting my chemo and radiation, I was in acute pain most of the time. So that just added to the stress. So, but basically the chemo radiation treatments were over in November of 2018. And I was able, through the grace of God, healing power, to have my back surgery in February of 2019.
Oh, wow. So then you have back surgery besides getting the treatments for the cancer.
Yes.
So, did you ever think that the cancer spread into your spine at a point?
People have asked that question. And did I ever think that my cancer would spread to my spine?
Yeah.
No, I think not, because I was so clear why I had rectal cancer. It got in my plan.
You mentioned you were independent. It sounded like you had a friend there when that happened, when I was listening to you explain that.
Yes.
And then it's also sounded like you made a decision to do something about it then right away.
You just pick up on everything so quickly, Vince. This is why I'm so enjoying this interview, because that is exactly my key word, is a decision. All my life, that has been my key word. You make a choice, you make a decision. And because of my friend Pam's work on brain research, she was able to give me words a long time ago of the victim, persecutor, rescuer paradigm is the way the world bonds with love. And so as a young teacher with 2 adopted children, a husband abandoned her, I was the perfect victim in that school system. Everybody could have just loved me up and poor you. But I had to make a decision, and this comes from the Course of Miracles. Would you rather be right or happy? So to give up the idea of being a victim of life, anything in life, you have to make a decision, right? And Pam gave me the words for that, which is using the right and the left brain, clarity, vision, and focus. So the clarity is a decision from the left brain, which is logical and linear. And the vision comes from the right brain, which you have to acknowledge. Most of us just dismiss it. But you get a vision, a picture of how my life would be. What do I want? And we talked about this before. The most important question, am I worth it? So once you get that vision, then you get a plan, and that is the focus. So it's instead of victim, persecutor, rescuer, which is really, really very tempting to fall into, you get a new paradigm of clarity, vision, and focus.
I want to touch on more of that as we go along because of your faith. You're deep rooted in your faith. So you go through this bout here with the cancer. What's the length of time that this takes to all this from beginning to end?
Well, I was diagnosed in August on my birthday, August 7th.
What year was that?
That was 2018.
Okay.
And then my treatment started around October. I was finished in November 2018. So I had 5 weeks chemo. You wear a fanny pack. Chemo is one aspect of it. The other is the radiation. And the after effects, I have to interrupt myself here. I asked my daughter the other day because she was here a lot. She came from California and she helped me a lot. And our relationship is excellent. But anyway, I said, Catherine, what happened? Was I really sick during chemo? Mom, you don't want to remember, is what she said. So I think we probably all have that experience if we've been through it.
How long was that chemo treatments for, and how many doses did you get?
2 weeks of chemo in the 5-week period, interspersed with the 5 weeks of radiation were constant. So as I was going through the 5 weeks, it was interrupted. It wasn't interrupted, but during that time, I had the 2 weeks of chemo.
And this is acute pain. So it feels much longer than that length of time. So now you're inspired by this. Where are we at as far as your recovery? Are you no more chemo, radiation, or not under any type of medication now? And what's your supervision? Where did the oncologists have you?
Okay, well, that's that the biopsy for, the test came the day after Christmas. And that was I was scared. That was the only time I think I cried. And they said to Pam, I don't know if I can go through another round of chemo. And she said, you've been through it once, of course you can. And yes, you have to, you do it. So since then, of course, then I had the operation. Well, since then, I have doctor appointments every 6 months for 5 years. And this is my 3rd year. And the last appointment was with my original oncologist, retired. But the last appointment, the doctor suggested that I have a scan because the reoccurrence of cancer is usually within a 3-year period. And this is the 3-year mark. Well, that is so interesting. And I write about that in the last chapter of my book, like to be continued, because you are always, once a cancer victim, you are always in some place in your head, and I know, Vince, you know this, you always think, is this another sign, right? Could this happen again? Well, I can get little signs, and I have a wonderful gastrointestinal doctor who says anytime I do have any kind of sign of blood, for instance, that I can just come and see him right away. And he reassures me that it's probably due to the radiation. My radiation treatment was my body, my buttocks was completely raw, besides which I had open groin sores from the radiation. So it is like, you just don't want to ever think about having.
Was that a basic radiation, or was that like a laser treatment radiation? Because I
don't
know that can do that different now.
Wow, I don't know the difference. It was, it was on the table and that thing went around,
I had laser because it went from my soft tissue to the hard tissue. So it went on my spine and on my bone. So I knew that there was 2 different kinds of treatments from experiencing it myself.
If you are listening from Australia, Florida, or just from around the corner,
From East Coast to West Coast outlets, if you're not to the dirty South straight, make a left and body.
contact us. Leave your mark with your host, Vince Cortese.
Now, what I want to do is your story is amazing because you're such a strong woman and you've achieved so much in your years, and you're still very vibrant and full of energy. You're 79, coming up on your 80th birthday, and you have an incredible story. I think that it's almost the pinnacle for an English teacher to inevitably write a book. It seems like a natural. So I want you to share with me how you came about writing the book and your purpose behind it, and what's going on with it.
One of the things I've learned in life that is no matter how much you give, you receive more from God. So I was reading once a week to a neighbor. I live in an over 55 community, and she was blind. She's going blind. And so I called her and I said, Carolyn, do you think you want me to read to you? She was a writer. She was a very accomplished woman, and she loved books. In fact, she told me one time that she would get 10 books out of the library a week. And she called the library, I love this quote, a cathedral of ideas. I just love that. So she prayed, and she seemed to know, God would seem to talk to her about me. I was there to give to her. And she gave me a whole new life, which is one thing I want to say here about vision. When you get sick, or any time it comes in your life and you decide you want to clarity, vision, and focus, you get a vision. I have had visions like of the future. What is my vision? It's so important. At the time, I just visualized being able to walk alone in a pair of denim overalls, because I liked clothes and I liked that fashion, and I couldn't walk really well, and I couldn't walk at all by myself really well for very long. So that was my vision. And I was thinking this morning, 2 years, about 3 or 4 years later, my vision has expanded to such an extent I couldn't even imagine doing a podcast like this, right? That was just beyond, much less write a book, much less be healthy and well. Okay, so Carolyn decided that she said she mandated that I write a book about what she called my radical hope and miraculous healing. Those are her words. In fact, Vince, I have something to show you because I love her so much. She died last July. But
Aw,
can you see this?
yes.
This is how she wrote, Vince, because she couldn't see.
Oh, wow. That's pretty
And
good. A
I
blind
have,
person wrote that.
yeah,
Wow.
she was not 100%. She was when she died. She was almost totally blind. But look at that. She would get ideas. She'd have this paper on her bedside, or actually, she wasn't in bed. She was in a chair. So she wrote, and I saw that. I always get tripped up when I see this. So she put first hope, and for faith and hope, and then give glory to the King. So radical hope. So I would write. So what do I write about? You have to write about everything. You have, and this is the first book, and you have many more. So I would I'd write a chapter, and she said, just when you remember, just write a chapter. And so I would, because I had taught writing. My method is always to get into the experience, so that your reader can relate to what you're saying, right? So I would just get into this experience of like getting my port, for instance, and how important it was when that was the time that I was going to just leave and walk out and be done. You couldn't. But anyway, so I would write a chapter, take it over there, read it to her, and she said, just put it in a folder, and eventually it'll all come together. And that's what happened. So I was so grateful that I was able to finish that book before she died. And she always wanted me to be on the radio. She always wanted me to be, because she felt that it wasn't me, it's God coming through me. And she wanted that other people to be reassured by that. And so that's what's happened. What a joy, huh?
Yes, that's incredible. It's always wonderful to hear the backstories of what motivates people to write. In some cases, it sounds like it's a popular thing in this modern window we're living in. But there has to be something, a significant emotional force to get you to move on that. I don't really care who you are, but writing a book is always fun. Margaret, I wanted you to share with me some of the other work that you have, and you were mentioning something about the journaling, and also when you were in your process of healing your spine and what your diet was like. So can you share with me those things?
One of the most important things I think about healing is active participation on the part of the patient or the person who is going through something. So it has to be mentally, spiritually, and physically. So as far as the healing from after the radiation and chemo to get ready for back surgery, a few months, because I asked the doctor, how long will it take me to be back? He said 6 months to a year. Well, in 2 months, 3 months, I had back surgery. So part of the process was to eat 60 milligrams of protein a day. So grams, not milligrams, grams of protein a day. So I put that in cereal, whatever. But another part of it, and this was an instruction I got from Pam, was to keep track of it, because if I kept track of it, I was responsible for it. It was just like the calendar I had on my wall while I was going through radiation and chemo. We would have it up on the wall. I was on the floor with my back pain, but we had it up on the wall and we could mark off every day. It was just a way to measure time, because going through a treatment like this, there is no time. There is no time, because your mind is in a different world.
Yeah. Your focal point is completely different when you're going through it. Now, you mentioned you have a journal. My question is, did the journal come about because of what you just explained you went through, or were you journaling before that?
Both, actually both. I journal every single day. I have notebooks of journals. It's just a good way for me to hear what God says and process it and then make notes. But journal in the, so after I wrote the book, I kept thinking, oh, cancer patients should have a journal to keep track, because when it's over with, just think of the legacy of the courage and of the hope and the faith and failures and sadness and fear, but it's all going to be documented. And it's a gift of self, because after that, you realize, I actually did this. I got through this. So I did write the journal, and it is free to download on my website as a PDF. It was just a gift that God gave me to put together. So that's at movingforwardwithmargaret.com.
One quick question on that journal. What are some of the ingredients in it?
Well, it starts out with it follows the chapters in my book, but you wouldn't have to have the book to do it. But it's like, how did you find out about it? What was your response? Questions, and then you can journal about it. But so it's
Okay.
a question, and then it's always a reflection and a scripture, some kind of a scripture.
Okay. Your format of that's very nice. A good influence. And I find myself, what I like about journaling is the measuring of where we are.
I
Because
love that word.
the idea of knowing how far you came, where you currently stand, and where you're heading towards that goal or that endpoint of the person you want to be. And this is a great way for people going through what you have, monitor. And as she just said so beautifully, you have the ability to see how far you come and what you actually accomplished.
And here's the way I think about it. God gave us gifts. And so many of us and I've thought about this for years, of the not worth it attitude, we do not acknowledge our gifts. And so therefore we cannot serve to the capacity that we are able, really. So you have to know who you are. And so guess what? That leads me to one of my biggest words, purpose. Like what is my purpose for living? Why would I live and somebody else die? Because we all know we've had friends have died. So why am I still alive? Why is that me? Well, we better find out the answer and know it to keep living. And for me, it is about expressing my experience. God has given me the gift to express my experience in a way that will touch other people's lives, whatever way they want to do it, which is why in my new book, I'm interviewing people who are over 80 and asking, how do you do it?
Wow.
And that is really our legacy, is each other, building on each other. Right now I'm doing table settings. And it's why, because meeting around a table in a beautiful atmosphere is communion. We need that in our society more than ever. And we need older people. We need to live so that we can convey our wisdom to others. It's precious. So anyway, that's my joy. That is my joy.
If you have a story to share, tell us. How are you going to leave your mark? Contact us. Leave your mark with our host, Vince Cortese. Be our guest.
So what I ask of all my guests that come on Leave Your Mark is, how would you like to be remembered? How would you like to leave your mark?
I was thinking about that question last night, and I was, teacher. I at one time thought my legacy was in my teaching. I was an innovator in my classroom, but and then I was thinking about faith. You want to leave a legacy of your faith? Oh my goodness. Then I was thinking, no, you want people to trust God's goodness. And I got the Bible verse in my head this morning. He staggered not at the promises of God, which was Abraham, because he didn't rely on his faith. I don't believe. I mean, he relied on God's love for him. So trust would be huge. But here is really what's coming to me right this second, which is God revealing. My message, my legacy is going to be joy. Because, and that's really important. I've got chills right now. I'm thinking about it, because my youngest daughter, when she came to help me for a week, she actually came to my bedside when I was at my very worst and told me she absolutely couldn't stay. She could not stay. She had to leave. She couldn't be around me. And at first I just panicked, but mostly I panicked because I didn't know how I was going to manage alone, because at the time she was filling in. So I didn't say it. And all of a sudden out of my mouth came, well, you know what? That's fine. If you have to leave, you have to leave. But my decision is to go forward in my life with joy, total joy, and every day. And if anybody wants to come on that journey with me, they're so welcome. And if they don't, or if they can't, I am still going to be in joy. And that was a huge, huge moment.
It's enormously healing for you, for sure. I mean, those are the types of situations or moments that allow us to heal and have that higher value of that feeling of joy that you're getting. So what I would like to do is, can you share with me your website and where we can find your book and any other links that the audience will be interested in?
Yes, I can. Can I show you my book?
Yes.
Okay, so whoops, the light. here, this is better.
There you go.
So the title is important to me. Moving Forward with Margaret.com is my website. Moving Forward with Margaret.com. It's kind of long. My daughter designed my website. I'm very proud of that. But Moving Forward was what my other friend, Sue, who was here every single day, walked my dog, took me to all my appointments. And she was so marvelous because she never felt sorry for me. And she would listen and I didn't complain, but if I had a concern, and she would always, just because she was driving most of the time, she was taking me to my appointment, she would just look forward and she would just say, well, moving forward. So that was our whole thing. We're just moving forward. We're not stopping. So I don't know that I answered your question. This is my book.
No, you did.
Okay.
You just gave us the inspiration behind the title. That's all.
Okay. And then, but what's fun? Fun? I have to have fun. Rectal cancer can be messy and funny.
Well, you were in a lot of pain, that's for sure. I mean, listen to what you went through. That was not pleasant at all.
The book is a story. I think it's a lot of people who read it enjoy it because it reads like a story. I had to say that about my book.
Okay, Margaret. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming by. And we're going to keep in touch with you and see how things go, because I'm sure there's going to be another book.
Can I tell you about it?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm writing it right now, and it's probably about 3/4 finished. It's called about a working title, Like 40 at 80.
I like that.
So,
I like that.
Do you like that title?
Yeah, you're a young spirit, and your willingness to want to learn every day with as much experience as you have now it's really inspiring. I appreciate you coming by, and I need to hear how you're doing as this all progresses.
Yes, and God bless you, and anybody who's ever watching this, just know that God is a healer, and that he cares and he loves no matter what the circumstances seem like. And that's the most important message I could ever give.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Thanks for listening to Leave Your Mark today. Tune into our next episode of Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese. Be blessed.
You just left your mark. Thanks for listening. Listen to more episodes on demand. Just click Leave Your Mark with Vince Cortese.